All right. Well, welcome everyone to what's today? March 29th. Holy cow, right? Marching on, almost April. And are you feeling the seasonal change? So welcome to MC Squared. And for those of you that are new to this, welcome also. That I will just tell you why we call it the MC Squared. It's because Masami and my husband Chris, and then our last name is Covey, so we call ourselves MC Squared. So that's why it's Monday equals MC Squared. So welcome for those of you that are new, and for those of you who've been here with us for a long time, thank you. And where should we start, Chris? Do you want to say a couple things about the full moon first, and
Yeah,
maybe
let's do
go
that,
from
and then
there?
let's make a few announcements, and then we'll get into the meaty part.
Yeah, maybe after we talk a little bit about the full moon, why don't we just kind of settle in too?
That sounds good.
So, I don't know, put it out in the chat too, but if you felt the shift over the weekend, it was a beautiful full moon. And it was definitely kind of marking the new beginning, new change, certainly feeling it. And, obviously it's Palm Sunday and Passover weekend. So it's powerful already. And the full moon, obviously, is very powerful. What I would say is that I had to contend with kind of an old me and old patterns of me that came up. Chris and I had a lot of kind of like our childhood patterns came up over the weekend. It was a pretty intense time, and then also very interesting to work through it, navigate through our patterns. It was really meaningful, actually. And I would say that the where I had to work on quite a bit was boundary practice. And many of you know that I work with boundaries using my entire body, right? So I don't rely on pendulum or muscle testing in the sense that you have to ask other person to do it or use an object to do it, but you use your body to do the muscle testing. So I had to do a lot of that. And I would say I took some notes here, but certainly kind of the old patterns of how do I say no, when to say no, how much to say yes, those things came about. And even yesterday too, it was like I had to honor my position and honor my own effort and how much I've been putting out there for a 7B course and for answering clients' questions. And, I do pretty much work all the time. So I had to say no to certain things. And that was not always easy, but I felt really honored to say no. And, many of you know that I've been going nonstop since about a little before Thanksgiving. So it felt like it really built up for me over the weekend. And Saturday, I could barely do much. And I thought, what's going on with my blood sugar? I think I was just depleted completely. So I had to say no to certain emails that came. And that was important. And then also and I will hand it over to you, Chris, soon, but we had to deal with our circumstances that we had to make a decision with this particular what is an arrangement that we've been in for a last year or so. And we've finally hit the point of like, we can't continue with this particular arrangement with this person. And I went into my childhood patterns by saying, well, I don't want to inconvenience that person. I don't want to make it hard on this person. So, so I was asking Chris to be a little bit more open to it. And I will hand it over to you how you reacted to this situation. So I was basically going to a place of, no, we have to support this situation. We have to support this person. We have to continue with this arrangement for another 6 months. And, from my point of view, Chris basically shut down completely and we didn't talk about it. So that was the pink elephant that was reminding me. It was a pink elephant in the room and neither of us wanted to talk about it. And he would just walk around my pink elephant. And I finally brought it up on Saturday night. And it's always, Chris just looks at me, he glares at me and he says, why do you always have to bring this up like right as we're getting ready to go to bed? Because I bring it up while I'm brushing my teeth. I'll be like, hey, honey, we haven't talked about this. You're ignoring me and we need to talk about it. And Chris is like, we're trying to go to bed. And I'm like, no, we need to talk about this. And so anyway, I'll hand it over to you, honey.
Yeah, what's interesting about these kinds of situations, and again, bringing it back into the context of this particular full moon that is being described as stirring up these childhood patterns, these old deep-seated ways of thinking. For me, there's a combination of wanting to express myself and then feeling like it gets bottlenecked, if that makes sense. It's trying to come out and the force of it is too strong. And so it all just kind of gets, there's a traffic jam somewhere around my throat and it can't come out. And so instead of being able to express it, it just makes me feel really frustrated. And then, like Masami said, shut down. Like I can't come out with the words because they're not going to be the right ones. And it's almost certainly going to come out as an emotional reaction, not what I'm trying to express. And so that's an old pattern for me. But interestingly enough, when we started to talk about this situation head on, we actually found very quickly that we were on the same page and that what it needed was just a decisive action. And it just needed to be done in a way that was respectful of everyone involved and just very clear. And we took care of it very simply. It was actually no big deal in the end. But it's so interesting how these old ways of behaving, if you're not able to spot them and catch them and then turn them, they'll just become another reason to get into an argument. And it might just, become a finger pointing game at that time. So yeah, just pay attention to what's getting stirred up, especially over the next few days. If there are things that are obviously habitual old patterns that you can see in yourself, but don't really quite feel congruent with who you are right now. And that's something that I could say for myself was very clear. It's I could feel the old emotional buildup pattern, but then at the same time, it's like, no, I know better than this. I've learned how to express myself. I'm not a frustrated 8-year-old that's being told what to do and what he can't have. No, I'm able to do this. So just pay attention.
Mm-hmm. I think the wants and needs are going to kind of come about this week too. And the needs are going to talk about, you need to do this. And then the wants will be like, no, but this is what I want. And so just step back and say, which are my childhood patterns? How do I react to these situations? And is it balanced in the masculine and feminine energy? Is this balanced as sky and earth? Is it balanced right and left? It's really important front and back. So we were able to come up with a win-win situation for all parties involved. So that was really good in the end. But it took us several days to come around to seeing that there's this elephant in the room and we needed to talk about it. So maybe some of you are going to be experiencing that this week. So when it does happen, notice, are you the type of person that bottles up, or are you the kind of person like me that would just hold it in, but then I blow up at the really not very optimal time, when we should be going to bed. But I wasn't going to be able to sleep till I brought it up. So I brought it up at 10:30 at night. So apologize to Chris for that, because I'm sure
I
he
just
had a
want to
hard.
add to that though, that what was so interesting coming out of it is that the conversation that we had actually very quickly went to much bigger things about what is trying to happen in our lives right now. Where do we want them to go? And this one thing was sort of the catalyst for that bigger conversation to happen. And that ultimately is the conversation that we needed to have. And it turned out that this one little stuck piece was holding that back. And by addressing it head on, it suddenly opened and, cleared the way for us to have this much more important, bigger conversation that was very energizing to have. And so, yeah, so it's almost like there's a door waiting to be knocked on. And if you knock and it opens and you go through it, you may find something even better on the other side of it, even if it looks a little bit daunting or annoying or whatever it might be. So
Yeah, and then aim for something a little more organic with this. And as well as we're in a seasonal change, so go with it. So if your decision is based on maybe winter type of a decision-making style where you're going to get under the cover and, you don't want to talk about it, you shelter yourself, you darken yourself, you don't want to deal with it, you don't want to talk about it, then you're still stuck in the winter reactions. We are slowly going into the spring, but it's not full summer yet, right? So it's like pushing up against the soil, pushing up against these kind of difficulties, but trust it that you can pop out of it, okay, and come out of it. I think that's how to live a little more organically right now. So we wanted to mention that. Chris, you want to take us through a little bit more, maybe as we exhale, coming back to our body
yeah,
for a couple minutes?
let's do this. I had another exciting lab experiment in nose breathing over the weekend where I've been practicing exercising and breathing only through my nose. And it's a pretty remarkable thing, and I encourage you all to check it out for yourselves. But let's just start by practicing it during opportunities like this too, of just coming back to your body. And so wherever you're sitting, I'm going to give you just 3 quick things to pay attention to. One is, well, 2 points of posture. And let's actually work from our seat. So there are going to be 3 points that I want you to pay attention to. So first of all, just feel your body on your seat, wherever you are, however you're positioned. Maybe some of you might even be standing or even lying down. But just find where your body is making contact, where you can feel that point of gravity connecting. Okay, so we're going to find our way back into our bodies for a couple minutes. And then if you're upright, sitting particularly, I want you to feel up into your spine and just follow it up from your seat. Just come up that lower curve in your lumbar. Feel that come up to the curve in your neck. And I want you to just imagine that you're extending the back of your neck upward, just slightly, not forced. And if you feel that your chin rises as you extend your neck, just bring it down a touch. Just lightly drop your chin slightly, long neck, relaxed. And the last thing is to feel a slight rise in your breastbone, your sternum, just a little lift to open up, just almost like it's floating up slightly. So those 3 things together will help you to sit with a little bit more attention. And then let's just take this opportunity now to just take a few cycles of breath through your nose. So just very slowly, no hurry, 5 or 6 seconds approximately for your inhale. And your exhale could be about the same, 5 to 6 seconds, or a little longer, it's fine. Let's just do that 2 more times. As much as you can, make that breath silent. So light that there's no sound. Just a little stream of air, a little sipping. And then just bring your attention to what's happening in your body right now. Just say hello. Do a quick scan from your head. Sometimes we like to use the image of warm honey that's slowly being poured over your head and spreading down, just like a golden light, making its way down your neck and shoulders and your chest and your back, down your arms and hands, down your hips, the front of your legs, back of your legs, down your knees, your shins, your calves, down all the way to your toes. Whatever comes up, just say hello and welcome it. Welcome the sensations, notice them without having to identify with them. So if you feel a touch of pain or tension, just notice it. You might even describe it as that, just pain, tension, discomfort, or maybe even feels good. So just notice all of those things. And then let's take just another round of 2 breaths. Again, I hope you've been breathing through your nose steadily this whole time. Slowly in and exhaling slowly out through your nose. And one more time. And as you start to finish that last exhale, just realize that what you've done is you've given your brain all of the information that it needs to convince itself that you are in a ready mode to relax, rest, digest, and be present without a stress response needed. So with that attention, come on back into the collective space here and slowly open your eyes if you had them closed. And with that, I'm going to hit you with some announcements. Now that I've got your attention. Okay, so a couple of quick things, and then we'll get on with the content that we are going to talk about today. The first thing is, for those of you in the UK and Ireland, we wanted to make a clarification. We'd mentioned a few weeks back that we were able to offer the hair tissue mineral analysis service in the UK and Ireland. But when it comes to Europe, there are some challenges with that. So currently we are limited to the UK and Ireland. I won't go into all the reasons for that. So if you're in the UK or Ireland, that's open to you. The US, Canada, that's open to you. And if you're outside of those areas, we're working on Australia currently. But if you have a question, you can contact us. But we wanted to just clarify that right now Europe is not widely available if you're outside of those 2 countries. The second thing I want to mention is that next week we're going to take a break. So we'll be off on April 5th, but we'll be back on April 12th. So if you want to make note of that, if you don't hear from us, that's why. And then most importantly here for the announcements, I wanted to just mention that as Masami finishes up her course with the Shift Network this week, she's offering 2 brand new ones that are very exciting for us. And the first one is going to actually open up on April 12th with the content. And that one is called The Art of Embodied Boundary Practice, How to Upgrade Boundary Practice for Your Holographic Anatomy. So I want you to, I'll put some links in the chat here in just a moment so you can find out more about it. But for those of you that did the Shift Network class, Masami is going to take this even further into the conversation around boundaries and what are healthy and subtle and active boundaries that you can support and make stronger and more appropriate in your life internally, especially. And the second class is the Breaking Through Weight Loss Resistance, the Alchemy of Receiving and Releasing. And that one's going to begin on May 5th. And both of these, I just want to mention, both of these classes are going to have a live component. The boundaries class will have 2 live calls connected with it, and the weight loss resistance class will actually be all live calls. So if you're interested in either of those, you can click on the links that looks like Masami's put up one of them already. Actually, she put up the course link, so you can click on that and go to either of them there. So do you want to add anything to that before we move on?
No, but just please take a look at it. The first one is going to be really fun because the boundary topic is so big. So I'll be going into some practices, but I'm going to take you guys through a little bit more food-oriented questions too, and supplements-oriented questions that I didn't get a chance to really go into at the Shift Network course due to the, not enough time really. So I'm going to go into much, much more on that. And the weight loss resistance, I am really excited to teach that one because it's a topic that I've been asked to teach for so long, and I've been resisting to actually teach the weight loss program. But it's 5 weeks. So, I wanted to do it long enough that it'll make a difference for you and have more interactions with each other so we can support one another. And as you know, we use the Teachable platform, so you can ask me questions. We can stay in touch better that way. We create more community. And for that course, I decided to do the Facebook group also, so we can kind of stay in touch and support one another for 5 weeks. So please take a look at it. And this is a great way to support us in Monday calls that we do for free. And, this is our livelihood. This is my livelihood. So this is one of the ways that I support my own self financially. So I would love it if you have never taken my course. I'm sure many of you have taken my course, and you will be able to say it on the chat or let me know that, I put a ton of stuff and tons of effort to making sure that it's a really good course. Every single class that I teach is full of fabulous information and practices and connections. So I hope you know that about me by now. So hopefully you will join, and, I would love to see you guys there. So one starts April 12th. The other one's May 3rd or May 5th. Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's get to today's topic, Chris. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, so for today, we're going to continue with the topic of how to address issues like nutrient depletions if you are on prescription medications. And so the point that Masami has repeatedly made with this is the research that has come out widely, which looks at adults in the US and over the age, it's over the age of, is it 60, 65?
Yeah, so over the age of 65, we'll use 4 prescription drugs on average.
Yeah, so what we're talking
average about, means some will use more, obviously.
Right, and that typically goes up as you increase the age. So if you go up to 70, 75, 80, the number of prescriptions typically will go up. And then again, the point being that despite the fact that we have all these people on a wide range of prescription medications, nobody can possibly come up with a study that can study the interactions between those different medications on the body for all those different cases where you have all these random combinations of 4+ medications in their body at one time. But what we do know is that when you're on certain medications, they have known side effects. And so we're looking at the side effects in terms of the nutrients that they tend to deplete. And so over the course of these last few weeks, we've talked about how different chemicals in these medications have either synergistic or antagonistic relationships with things like minerals and vitamins in particular, and some of the other nutrients in our bodies that we take in from plants or enzymes or things like that. And so what we're going to look at, and Masami will jump on in just a second here.
Yeah, why don't we start with the beta blockers?
Oh, you want to start with that one? Okay.
Yeah, let's just get going.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're going to talk about the anti-hypertension drugs today, because this is a pretty big class. A lot of people are on these, and there are a lot of nutrients that are impacted. Okay.
Are you gonna do
Why
it?
don't
Okay.
Yeah.
Why don't you talk about that? Like, what are some of the medications, and I will read off the side effects of those first.
Yeah, so okay, so I'm just going to read some of the brand names, and some of you may be on other versions of them, but some of them would be Toprol XL, Norvasc, Lisinopril, furosemide, chlorothalidone, digoxin, clonidine, or propanolol. All of them tongue twisters. So if any of those are familiar to you, or if you know you're on an ACE inhibitor or a beta blocker, these are the same class of drugs that we're talking about here generally. Okay, so ACE inhibitors, beta blockers, those are the more common names for those. So I'll put up some of those names in the chat.
Okay. Well, and one thing about the beta blockers is that over the years we have seen these are maybe the heart conditions are pure. I would say even there's correlation there. There's maybe causation there too, to poor diet and poor nutrition and poor digestion. And so the ones that the clients that we work with that do take these medications respond really, really well in a long term. Like I would say 6 months to a year makes a huge difference by changing their diet and changing the way they digest their foods. So anytime there's heart conditions involved in it, you want to look at, I am not nourishing my body. Okay. It's kind of a form of malnourishment that is happening. And some of the common side effects of beta blockers include cold hands and feet, impaired mental function, fatigue, dizziness, depression, lethargy, reduced libido, and impotence. So, obviously you don't want to stop taking these because you've been prescribed of these. So you do want to talk with the physician that prescribed these to you. But what we have seen working with people's nutritional support is that they can turn things around and they can start to work with their physicians to tweak their medications or maybe take less of it. But, please don't do that like on your own. This is the type of place that you need help and you need some good guidance. So definitely talk to your doctor about it and start looking at what am I eating? How am I eating? When am I eating? And, one of the things that I get asked all the time, and the 7B class in the Shift Network that I've been doing too, is what am I supposed to eat for breakfast? Okay. And then I wrote pretty decent comments about this on the Facebook group for the course, if you're taking that course. But one of the things that I will say this is, you do not want to start your morning with carbohydrates. You really don't. You really do not want to start with bowl of cereal. I don't care if there's a special K or if it is, gluten-free, all organic. It doesn't matter. You're starting your morning and setting yourself up for insulin resistance. You're setting yourself up for blood sugar dysregulation. So I do not start my morning with carbohydrates. I haven't done that for a long, long time. That goes for fruits. Okay, so a lot of people say I start with oatmeals and it's gluten-free, organic, and then I put blueberries, I put bananas, I put mangoes, and I put strawberries, and I just go, well, you just are eating organic, but it's all carbohydrates. So that's something that you definitely want to look at if you're having particularly heart issues, because your heart does not like that kind of a breakfast. That's going to throw off your blood sugar, right? So for those of you that have been taking my 7-week course, we just covered the module on blood. The importance of balancing your blood sugar is going to be the key to longevity, key to your health. So that's just one of the things that I talk about. And honestly, I have been having to work with a lot of clients that have been somewhat injured blood sugar wise, injured and dysregulated because they've been following certain recommendations that would recommend the person to do juicing. And we're talking raw juicing, raw fruit juicing, raw veggie juicing. And there's a time and place for that. Okay. But for most times, if you continue that, you are going to dysregulate your blood sugar, and that's going to have a dire effect on your heart. So nutrients that do get depleted by taking beta blockers are, no surprise, CoQ10, right? CoQ10 is a big one. Phosphorus is another. Potassium, we see this a lot with people that are missing potassium. And if somebody's missing potassium, you're certainly going to miss magnesium, because magnesium and potassium are like best friends. Okay. So, and beta blockers are known to deplete the individuals from magnesium. And a lot of these will have kind of, what you call it, like a dehydrating effect on your body. Almost all medications, but particularly beta blockers. So they will definitely deplete you of magnesium. So that's something you want to look at. And obvious things like zinc, sodium can come down also. And so, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of what we think of sodium and how important the sodium is for your heart health. But, if your doctor is still telling you that you shouldn't eat salt and that you should avoid salt, you might need to be the educated person that will go on to PubMed or look up scientific journals and just go pubmed.org and type in why sodium is important for your heart, and maybe update your research. And, so that's what I have for you in terms of the heart. And then last thing is that, my love of B vitamins, but particularly B1 is going to be important. So, it's one thing to take these things because you're on beta blockers, but there's another level is, why am I needing the beta blockers? That's where you ultimately want to go, right? But while you're trying to get to that journey, you may need to support your body using these things, minerals and vitamins. So is that good, Chris, with the
Yeah.
beta blocker?
Yeah, and I want to just add a couple of things, and then there's some comments that have come in that I think it'd be good to touch on. One is, so hypertension is something that happens when you are not breathing in the proper way for your body's needs, whether that's mouth breathing or over breathing, which is often the result of mouth breathing. What we practice just at the beginning of this call is something that actually will literally help with this hypertension issue. Okay, so it's like what Masami was saying. You need to go to the level of asking not just how can I use nutrients to circumvent the effects, but how can I get ahead of what's causing the doctor to tell me that I should even be on this medication in the first place? What am I missing in my own daily practice? Is there something that I can improve functionally that might even take away the need for a medication to help balance out this function? Because our bodies are built to do this on their own. I mean, it kind of goes without saying. It's only been in the last few decades we've even had these drugs, and yet people have been here this whole time, or else we wouldn't be here. So one thing to Joanne's question, she asked if there's a connection between some of these issues. Joanne, just so you know, we talked more about the stomach acid in general a couple of weeks back. I think it's the first one of these that we did. But I think your question is more about how issues with digestion and stomach acid are impacted by the medications, if I'm understanding where you mean to go with that question. And if you take a look at the list of nutrients that I put up in the chat just a moment ago, and you start paying attention to the things we've been talking about, most of these are very closely related to the digestive process. So this is a roundabout way of saying, yes, these medications will have an impact on your digestion and your stomach acid, because things like zinc are components. They're both components of stomach acid, and they need stomach acid to be activated. Okay, zinc in particular. Calcium requires stomach acid to be activated. Magnesium needs it. So many of these things are very tightly connected to how your digestion is in your stomach. And Go ahead. Do you want to jump on that?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to mention about the hypotension question. So, hypotension is something that you want to look at in terms of your adrenals. Your adrenals needing lots of support. So adrenals are nutrient sucking machines. And I think I've mentioned that too in the last Monday calls too, that when you got hypotension issues, you have a systemic exhaustion going on too. And so it's complicated, but I would definitely look into your adrenals.
So
And
Joanne's, sorry.
adrenals require blood sugar regulation. So that means you want to look at your diet. I would also definitely look at B vitamins. Zinc is a big one. Even things like I would say manganese also for hypotension. Yeah.
So Joanne clarified her question. I had it backwards. So she was asking if the having low stomach acid makes the medications less effective. I would say, generally speaking, having low stomach acid makes everything less effective in your system. Part of the reason for that is, I mean, a lot of these drugs don't rely on the same pathways as nutrients do for absorption. A lot of them are small enough molecules. They're absorbed through your stomach lining. They're absorbed directly through your gut lining. So I would actually doubt that the medications are less effective with low stomach acid, but certainly the functions of your body are going to be impacted by low stomach acid globally.
And probably, Joanne, I would look at more of a liver function as well, because liver is the one that has to process your medication, right? It doesn't necessarily, medication doesn't always get digested, but it does go through the digestive tracts if you're going to swallow it, get absorbed through the duodenum and then small intestine area, but the liver has to process it. So, some people, I have worked with clients that the medications, like they have to take super dose of medication in order for them to feel anything or change anything, because their pathways for phase 1, phase 2, and phase 2.5 of the liver detoxification pathways are super out of balance. And so the person cannot utilize the medications. So then we have to look at what's going on with the liver. Why is this person hyper processing the medications, and work on the diet? And, so, but yeah, like Chris said, stomach acid doesn't matter too much in terms of the medication efficacy. Yeah.
I wanted to comment really quick on Jim's question too about hypotension, because we were just reading recently an article about this, and hypotension is something that typically isn't seen. There are two classes of people that's mostly found in. It's extreme athletes, because they have very, very highly developed cardiovascular systems and typically lower heart rates at rest and things like that. And the other is people in burnout. And so if you're not, a high performing athlete, then probably what you want to watch out for are the signs of burnout in and around you, and be very conscious of that, because it's a fast moving, slippery slope. So you want to make sure that you're getting all the rest and self-care that you can as often as possible. So
Yeah,
there were a couple of
that's why I brought up the adrenals, Jim.
yeah, and I just
Yeah.
wanted to piggyback on that, because they're definitely connected.
You're wiped out. You're put on a really happy face, but you're really exhausted. So
Yeah.
you need to take some time for yourself, whatever that means to you. Means more rest, more time of silence, more times that you can just say, okay, I am going to take time to just look at the clouds. Things like that. Walk on a beach if you're near it, or trees, or take a vacation for the sake of taking a vacation, not to take a vacation so that you can learn more, but something like that. Because otherwise you wouldn't be having symptoms of hypotension if your adrenals weren't quite exhausted. So
before we jump to the next topic, there are a couple other comments that I want to read. Joanne said, I'm taking Masami's Cosmic Flow course, and not just the quantity and quality, the information and the unique gifts that I think says that Mamas brings. Maybe it's Mommy Masami. She's been called that before, but that Masami brings to the table. but the amount of PDFs and organized takeaways are lifelong and beyond what I have seen any other instructor doing. So thank you, Joanne, for that comment. And then Mary Barb had a question about the 2 courses. Which one would be more directed toward dealing with adrenal fatigue out of those 2?
Yeah. So adrenal gets fatigued because most of the time, because our blood sugar is dysregulated. So Mary, I would actually, if I were you,
she wants to know which course would
I know. So I know, I'm just testing which course.
Okay.
I think that I would go with the second one because it's 5 weeks of live and we have support system and we're going to go through how to release some of these excess weight and balance your blood sugar. And we're going to go into different saboteurs, so we're going to go into physical saboteurs. We're going to go to emotional saboteurs. We're going to go psychic saboteurs. And then I'm going to share with you something that I've worked on for like 20 years to create of certain cravings and why that is and how that's connected to your emotions and things. So if you're having adrenal fatigue, that's the one that I would go with.
Well, and I would add to that too, that the weight loss resistance is highly, highly connected to adrenal health. And so what the things that Masami is going to be teaching have a lot to do with recognizing and dealing with stressors in your life and the stress that they cause. And that is 100% connected to adrenal health, both directly and indirectly. So one last question.
Let's go into
I'm going to answer this one in the chat. I'm going to put up a link. Sharon's asking, what time is the boundaries course? Sharon, if you click the link Masami put up, you can actually click into either of those courses, but I'll put the direct link to the boundaries course and you can see the times on that. And then we'll go ahead and get into the next section here.
Wow. Did you read Jim's comment, Chris? It's at the bottom.
Not.
Read that fits.
Okay. Okay, Jim. So you're an ultra runner until your body broke down during a 31-mile race. I have to say, I was a crazy runner for many years and I stopped abruptly one day because I had a heart arrhythmia about half a mile from our house. And I was not taking care of myself beyond training. I was just all about the run. And so I think you probably check off both of these categories that I mentioned earlier. So you might need to follow up on this some other time, but thanks.
Yeah, we should. We do really need to talk about the adrenal fatigue at some point, Jim. So yeah, we feel you. So if you lived next door to us, I'll be coming over and say, okay, Jim, I'm going to strap you down to this massage table and you don't get to move. I'm going to make soups and I'm going to spoon feed you. That's probably what I would do. So yeah, I could feel it. So take care of yourself because adrenals are really wiped out and they do love the B vitamins. Please know that. So you might want to do liquid B vitamins under your tongue. You want to take extra B vitamins, but particularly B6, B1, they love that. And the zinc combo. Those are great combo. Yeah. And you can email us too, and we can, guide you to some of the supplements that we take. And you can go to our website under store that we have some supplements listed there. We don't have all the supplements we work with, but okay. So then I'm going to answer the question about that. Linda says, are there other ways to increase stomach acid or is taking HCl the only way? Taking the HCl is the best way. Okay. I have to say that, it's hands down the best way. But for those of you that are having a hard time swallowing, that gets caused by low stomach acid. So it's like this vicious circle, right? You have to take them in order to bring the HCl up, but then you can't swallow, so then you can't get your HCl up. One thing that you can do, obviously, is to start to take things like you might have heard, taking some apple cider vinegar. So putting like 2 teaspoons to maybe a tablespoon into 4 ounces of water, dilute it and drink it a little before you eat, about 10 minutes or so before you start to eat. That could be a good one. You can also do that similar thing with the lemon juice, but the apple cider vinegar does a better job. Eating a little sea salt can be helpful. Bitters have known to help stimulate the HCl productions as well. So something that is really bitter HCl production does go down as you get older. And then if you've been vegetarian for a long time or vegan for a long time, that's going to also lower your production of HCl also. So it's what you eat that matters also. I would look into that, and naturally you produce more HCl, hydrochloric acid, during the lunchtime. So you want to train yourself to eat the largest meal at lunch, and that can be good. There are a lot of breathing techniques too. I've been teaching some of the massage and breathing techniques on the 7B course, but those are the things to get started on. Okay. And let's do the next one. Ready?
Yeah, there's some
Okay.
really good questions though, I have to say. Just really one more. Jamila
Okay.
said that even without weight issues, I assume adrenal issues can still need to be addressed. Yes, even without weight issues. In fact, adrenals are not only about weight. Adrenals are about how your body produces reserve energy or emergency energy. So it's really about how are you coping with stress and the body's signaling about surviving versus thriving. And that's a topic for a whole other day and probably another course. But the short answer is yes, you absolutely could be suffering from adrenal issues, even if it has nothing to do with weight specifically or visibly. Okay.
Mhm.
It's a global issue in your whole system. All right. So now let's do the next one.
Okay, so we just did the beta blockers. So are we going to do the NSAIDs?
Yeah,
No,
let's do that. We
NSAIDs
can just touch on these. We mentioned these before, but
and anti-inflammatories, guys.
yeah. So
And these are the aspirins, ibuprofen, acetaminophen, yeah, naproxen.
naproxen, yeah,
The,
naproxen, which is like the high strength ibuprofen that you can get with Aleve, I think is one of the naproxen brands. But the thing about this is a whole class. They're called NSAIDs, or non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. And a lot of people take them just by the handful. I was once advised by one of my former students' parent, who was the head of a major surgeons, like she's a surgeon, and she was head of the state's surgical, association, and she was a big athlete too. She was a runner, and I asked her once how many she thought was safe to take because I was in a lot of pain, and she said, well, for myself, I take several. Don't quote that I'm telling you to do this. Okay, this is not information I endorse, but she said, it's safe to take several times a day, 800 milligrams or more of ibuprofen. And what we know now, this was about 20 years ago, what we know now definitively is that this class of drugs, you can almost imagine that you're swallowing little tiny needles, not literally, but figuratively speaking. They're like little needles that perforate the lining of your gut, because that's what this class of drugs will do, is they cause leaky gut over time. So ironically, people take them for anti-inflammation, right? You take them to help reduce pain from inflammation. But after you take them for a period of time, which for some people it could be days, some people it could be weeks, but once you've taken them to the point of your body's tolerance, they will actually cause breakdown of the lining of your small intestine, which creates inflammation. So you get into a vicious circle of taking anti-inflammation drugs that cause inflammation, and you need more and more and more of them all the time. Okay, so that might even be enough said about what these things do, but in terms of the nutrients that they are depleting, it's going to be some really specific ones that are really important for things like detoxification and energy in your cells. So things like folate and iron. Okay, you can't have energy from oxygen in your blood without iron. Okay, potassium and sodium, absolutely critical for the energy in your cells. Vitamin C, it's a big catalyst for a lot of things. An antioxidant, it's important in detoxification in your cells also, and so is glutathione. Okay, so those are, and glutathione is a key detoxification molecule in your liver. You cannot detox your liver without glutathione. So if you're having leaky gut, which is creating inflammatory effects, and you're taking these drugs to help with the inflammation, but it's making it worse, you're also reducing your ability to clear those drugs from your liver, because you're also depleting glutathione, which the liver needs to get rid of them. So there's a whole chain of things that gets nasty when you start to take these things long term, especially as you get higher and higher in the dosage, because the effectiveness declines over time as well. Okay, so that's a short take on those, and I'll put up a list of those nutrients, and then do you want to hit the statins really quick, and then we'll
Yeah, that's good. And is it okay? Robin is like, is it okay to take NSAIDs occasionally? My point is, why are you needing to take NSAIDs? That's where you want to go. Why are you needing them? Right? Before you start to go, well, isn't it okay to take occasionally? And in fact, we can't answer that question because we don't know enough of why you need to take them. And I would just say, what is causing you to have inflammatory issues that required you to take those? I don't even remember the last time that I took NSAIDs. Probably I was a teenager, most likely. So it just, pain is something that I have worked with meditation and breathing and my own way of working through parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system, that I manage pain quite well. So I would go to that place first before you reach for the NSAIDs, because it wrecks your gut every time you take it. For those of you that do take Tylenol often and thinking that that's, no big deal, I would definitely look into pubmed.org and look up Tylenol and small intestinal lining inflammation or something like that and learn about it. There's just too many scientific studies that are coming out that I would not touch stuff like that for my body. Okay. So it's just something to think about. Why am I having these issues? Go there first and become curious. Okay. And become the expert of you, right? That's our motto. Our business motto is become the expert of you. All right.
Can I just add to that really quick? I want to just say that, we have developed our personal practice in such a way that our choice has been not to use painkillers. And both of us have had severe injuries. And that's not to say that we're pain-free, but a whole other part of the work that we have done and continue to do is about learning to listen to your body and what it's trying to tell you. And pain is a major vocabulary of our bodies. If we're just simply trying to shut it down the moment it comes up, we're probably missing a really important set of messages that are coming through us that are telling us that we need to be doing something in a different way. If you keep getting chronic pain the same way, the same time, the same place, something is happening repetitively that is leading to that. And maybe you've had an injury like we have, maybe you have structural injuries or bone injuries that are causing some of this chronic pain. But I can tell you on both of our behalfs that working with your diet, working with how you live day to day, fine-tuning those little practices of your individual moments are going to go a long way to help with this. Okay, so we'll save that for later, but that's a really key point to me.
Chris, let's go to the statins, and could you read off some of these names, because these are just like a foreign language to me. So
yeah, and these are some of the brand names, but again, some of you might be on generic statins. Okay, so for cholesterol regulation, and by the way, this is to us kind of an arbitrary thing that happens because the number keeps getting dropped by the industry. They keep lowering the index number for so-called healthy cholesterol levels. So there's a lot of confusion out there with people about whether they're low, high, or normal. So yeah, so I'll read a couple. Lipitor, of course, Zocor, Pravachol, cholestyramine, I can hardly even say it, cholestyramine, cholestyramine, and fenofibrate are some of the big brand names for that.
And do you want to just go ahead and read the nutrients that get depleted?
And again, I mean, if you've been listening to this series closely, you'll notice that there are a lot of repeats here. So if you have several of these medications, you may notice that you are getting hammered on several of these nutrients by possibly even all of them. For example, CoQ10, I think that's been on nearly all the lists that we have put out so far. And that's, again, one that's impacted directly. And again, CoQ10, your body we would consider it an essential nutrient because we make very, very limited quantities and we really need to take it in from either food or supplement sources. So that's a key for brain health. Beta carotene is depleted, calcium, folate, iron. We already heard all of those earlier today. Magnesium and phosphorus, we've heard those today. And then all of your fat-soluble vitamins, vitamins A, D, E, and K, are all affected by statins, of course, because statins are regulating what your body does with fat and cholesterol. Okay, so of course they're going to be impacted. And vitamin B12. Okay, so it's quite a list. These have very sustained long-term effects.
Well, so, there's a question that came in. Is it possible for you to give us a ballpark number for high cholesterol? The fact is we cannot because it's very bio-individual. And then also it's a ratio between your LDL and an HDL also matters. The size of your cholesterol matters also, right? And also how you feel. So we were having a conversation with one of my mentors when was it? This past Friday, we met up with him. And we were having this conversation that he was giving us an example of somebody with a cholesterol in the 600s. And the doctor was like, oh my gosh, this guy's going to die and we need to just lower his cholesterol, whatever. But what ended up happening was that he could barely, when they started to lower it down to the 500s, he actually stopped operating normally. His brain started to go into like a brain fog. He couldn't think straight anymore. He was not functioning well. Okay. So one thing that, we're not doctors, so we can't just sit here and say, here are the numbers, here's the range. But one thing we can tell you is that during the 1940s and 50s and even up to early 1960s, the total cholesterol number in the 300s, mid to even higher 300s, were considered to be healthy. Okay. And guess where the number is these days? They're bringing it down to 180. And it might be going down to 160s. Why? What did we change that much as human bodies from the 1960s? Seriously? Okay. So I don't know. I see 8-year-olds being put on the statin drugs. So, what is going on here? The fact is, I've been repeating this over and over, the brain is mostly fat. You want fat. Without cholesterol, you don't make good sex hormones, okay? And without cholesterol, without fats, we don't have the activities of the bile. Without the activities of bile flowing through, you're not going to have good microbes. Then the microbes cannot produce your hormones either, because they do produce your hormones as well, in addition to your adrenals producing them, or your ovaries producing them, or sex organs producing them, right? So you just kind of start to go into this craziness. So I'm a fan of women of certain age and up. So I would say menopausal women and up, basically. Okay, I'm not a doctor, so please don't quote me on it. I like to see women in their mid 200s to be healthy cholesterol with women.
Can I add something?
They tend to be a lot more engaged in their bodies. They tend to not have brain fogs. They sleep through the night. That's clinically what I have seen. Okay, so I'll stop.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I want to add on to one thing Masami said earlier, is if you're not getting enough cholesterol into your body, what will happen is, she mentioned that the sex hormones are made from cholesterol, but so are your stress hormones. And what will happen is whatever cholesterol you do get is going to get converted into stress hormones, not sex hormones. So that means that you're going to start having imbalances in the sex hormones, because low cholesterol levels are going to almost directly lead to stress hormones being the ones that get made. I mean, there's this whole thing called the cortisol steal, or the pregnenolone steal. That's the precursor that makes the sex and stress hormones. And if your body is low on cholesterol and high in stress, it's going to make the call to produce more and more stress hormones every time. It's about survival or nicety in the functions of your body. It's going to pick survival every single time. So dialing down your cholesterol levels is going to make that more difficult for your body to make and use sex hormones. And one other thing I wanted to say is, people are not necessarily very well informed about what cholesterol is, what it does. LDL and HDL, by the way, are not cholesterol. Okay, I want to repeat that again. LDL and HDL are not cholesterol. They are lipoprotein transport molecules. Okay, they're transport molecules. They're like little taxis. And essentially what you want to think about them is, the LDL are the ones that are going back to the liver because they've already been out in the field. They're like the field medics on a battlefront, where the cholesterol has been deployed to help take care of damage to tissues, and it's patched it up. And they actually rescue that cholesterol and shuttle it back to the liver for repair. That's how important it is. The body recycles and repairs cholesterol, and then it redeploys it in the form of HDL, meaning the little transport molecule has cholesterol attached to it that's getting redeployed back into the field. Okay, that's how important it is. And so it's really not a fair representation to just think of it as good and bad. Okay, and we have to really open our minds up a little bit and learn more about how these things work, so that we're not thinking in these simplistic terms and then harming ourselves by just arbitrarily deciding one's bad and then trying to fix it with a quick fix.
Well, and I think in the honor of our best friend who is retired firefighter, we're going to use this analogy. So think of cholesterol as firefighters, okay? They're going out there to the inflammation. They're going out there to the fire sites, and then they are putting out the fire, okay? But what we're doing is we're pointing our fingers at the firefighters and say, why are you guys here? Meaning, why are you always showing up to the state of fire? You must be starting the fire. And we're actually pointing our fingers at the firefighters and say, we're going to stop putting, funding to you guys, and we're not going to support the firefighters anymore because you guys are causing the fire. No, that's not the case. Firefighters show up to the fire sites because there's inflammation in the body. So why is your cholesterol, if the doctor says your cholesterol is too high, well, number one, you need to look at, say, well, is it too high? Do I feel good? Do I feel like my body doesn't have any aches and pains? Then maybe that's a right place for you, okay? But another thing is that, let's say all of a sudden your cholesterol started to climb up, okay? And the doctor is worried about it. Then you need to say, why is my body so inflamed? Why do I have fires everywhere in my body? That's what you want to work on, not point your finger at the cholesterol and say, I'm going to take a statin drug so that I can lower you guys' funding. Okay, so stop thinking that way. Get yourself a little bit more educated in this topic. Start to learn about how the cholesterol is supporting your health. And like I said, I'm going to stick by it. As you get older, for women, higher cholesterol women tend to live happier, less depression, their brains work better, their joints don't hurt because their bodies are being managed quite well with the inflammation and the firefighters. They're having a good relationship. That's what I see clinically. That's what I have recommended with my own mother. Genetically, I have a higher cholesterol than what it's considered to be normal, okay? Normal or healthy. but I have a genetic disposition to have a higher cholesterol. So I am not going to go out there and lower my cholesterol. I'm going to work on my diet, my digestion, my sleep, my adrenals, and take care of myself so that I can to maintain this really good cholesterol for me. And my cholesterol is about 280, everyone. 280, all right? Some of you will be like, holy cow, that's so high. You need to take, no, I'm not going to take statin drugs because I feel great. Okay. So that's where you got to go. You've got to get to know yourself. And learn about it, read about it. There's plenty of stuff out there. If you're interested in a book, there's a book that came out in 2012. Around the same time, there was like a really scientific one that came out with almost the same exact title, but the ones that are easier to read. It's called The Great Cholesterol Myth. The Great Cholesterol Myth. That's a layman's term. It's much easier to understand. I would go for that. And you could probably get those books for pretty cheap now. So The Great Cholesterol Myth. All right. So I think that's what we have.
Yeah, we should wrap up here. There was one last question. I don't want to go without just mentioning it. And Richard, by the way, glad to hear that you're a septuagenarian without any medications whatsoever. So keep
wow.
Great.
Yay!
But also, Mary Barb asked a question about she's going through fatigue, anxiety, depression, apathy, and she says, I know, of course, they're messages from your body, but they're making me almost unable to function at all. And should I stay away from anti-anxiety or antidepressants? So again, we can't tell you one way or the other. We're not physicians, we're not doctors, so we can't make that recommendation. This is a complex issue. We're not going to be able to unpack that one now because we're at the end of our time. But what you can do is go back, and we've had several other calls where we've talked about liver and how important liver health is. That's one aspect of it. So much of these factors that you're talking about, they start to take shape in your day-to-day practices. So liver health, helping your liver to release some of its toxicity, that's going to be helpful. But so are some very simple practices like sitting still, breathing. And if you haven't tried doing some sort of meditative practice, that's another thing that can help, because all of these things train your body to get out of the fight or flight mode that's getting triggered all the time. So we'll save that for another day, but just so you have something to take away.
Yeah. And I definitely, I know Mary early on said that, I don't have a weight issues, I think, but I would still take that 5 weeks course if I were you, just so that you can balance your adrenals better and blood sugar, because when you're on the blood sugar roller coaster, you are going to go into ups and downs with your emotions. So
well, to take it out from there, I want to quote from the chat from Mary Basse. Thank you, Mary. She says, I want to highly recommend taking either or both, if possible, of Masami's upcoming classes. If you have never taken one of her courses, you are in for a treat. She gives so much information and goes in depth in a way that you will be amazed. So thank you, Mary.
Oh, thank you, Mary. And I think Singing Phoenix, we know who that is. Did you read that? Read her.
I didn't see that one.
Go back up there, and could you read that?
Okay, hold
Samantha.
Okay, so. Yeah. So thanks, Samantha. She says, if you haven't taken one of Masami's courses, you can only imagine how deep and rich and thorough they are. We are also amazed. We are also lucky to have these free Monday sessions, and you'll benefit from going deeper and support their generosity as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Samantha. All right. So I think, so we'll take a little bit of break because I have another summit that I'm getting interviewed for this Friday. So I got to get ready for that. And I have to start creating the course materials in depth. So we'll take a next Monday off, but we'll be back on the 12th. And we'll definitely try to touch upon a couple more medications, but maybe different topic we might go over in April. So it's the Earth Day coming up in April, and that's my birthday. It probably doesn't surprise you that I was born on Earth Day, right, everyone? So we'll be addressing more earthly things and work on grounding ourselves and enjoy our spring in the North Hemisphere and then the fall in the Southern Hemisphere. So thanks, everyone, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, thank you everyone. And thank you for those of you that have already signed up and are going to sign up. Mary Barb and Susanna just mentioned that they are
Oh,
joining
good. Thank you.
courses. So thank you all. We'll see you next time.
Bye.